Hi again and welcome to my channel, and we have a follow-up to a video that I did a few weeks ago, and that's concerning the comic TV Century 21 that we did, as I say, a few weeks ago. And I wanted to follow up with this because I obtained a second comic in the series, in the same series, TV 21 and Joe 90. How exciting is that? Completely different cover. It's occurred to me that with comics and boys growing up, that things change, and although those two comics are only 3 years apart, we'll see as we look through the pages that the style's completely changed and the content has as well. Things just change, and because those comics reflect what programs were being shown on TV, of course TV just moves on and programs do as well. So I suspect that comic is really aimed at a different set of youngsters, and we'll just be flipping through the pages, as I say, and see how it's changed in 3 years. For the better or for the worse, who knows? So let's have a look at the pages, starting with the front cover. So just to look at the top of the comic on the front page, where it says TV 21 and Joe 90, the price has gone up to 8p or 8D since the last comic that we looked at, which was 7D. It's still Wednesday when the comic is published. One of the notable things that's changed actually on this comic is, of course, the disappearance of the futuristic date. This now details the exact date when the comic was published. The comic also details new series. This is number 5, so they reset the numbering on these comics. So let's just now have a look at the front page as a whole. We can see that the major picture, of course, on here is from Star Trek. This is Mr. Spock with some alien behind him, menacing alien, and you can see that the whole design of the front cover has been changed dramatically, because in the past TV Century 21 was concerned with mostly the Gerry Anderson series and trying to set the comic in a style like a newspaper, and also set in the 21st century. And this has largely disappeared now. We don't have on the front cover these news stories relating to the Gerry Anderson series. In fact, most of these series have been removed from the comic, and the highlighted TV program is now Star Trek. And we'll see later on how this is influenced within the stories of the in the comic. So let's move on to the first story, and we can see that this is a complete change from the last comic, in as far as we've got a story here, forward from the back streets, obviously relating to football. Now TV 21 or TV Century 21 was never a comic that had football stories, and now it has. It's kind of been an amalgamation really of well, still retaining some of the TV Century 21 flavour, but also now absorbing in one of the other facets of boys comics of that time, and that's football stories. So now we have a football story, and it's a double pager, and it's in black and white, but then most of the stories in the TV 21 and Joe 90 comic are black and white. There's only 2 stories that are colour. So we come to the first of the colour stories, and that's the Land of the Giants, a American TV program of the time, was produced by a guy called Irving Allen, and he produced a number of science fiction related TV series at the time. So the comic had decided to depict Land of the Giants in colour. So quite well drawn, I would say, and probably using their better artists here to depict the stories here from Land of the Giants, I would think. I don't think it's as good as the colour stories within the previous comic, but that's just perhaps me. So again, another double pager for Land of the Giants. Then we come on to an advertisement for annuals, and also a story relating to Henry Cooper. So this would have been obviously a real life kind of news article slipped into the magazine or comic, and I think that this was something that's been carried through from the first iteration of TV 21 or TV Century 21. And we have a page that's headed Laughing, so a series of little cartoony sketches and jokes, and also we have an advertisement for Standards fireworks. So I guess this must have come out in the latter part of the year. Advertisements for fireworks were always prevalent in comics during that time. So now we come to Joe 90, and obviously this is a Jerry Anderson production, a puppet production that's detailed here in kind of real life rendition of characters. And it's interesting to note that although this is kind of the story or headed story that's featured in the title page of the comic, it's not actually produced in colour, it's actually black and white still. Quite well drawn in some respects. It's a double page, although the second page has an advert on it, so you could say it's 1.5 pages taken up for Joe 90. And then we move on to the center page, which is taken up with the Star Trek story. So of course nothing to do with Jerry Anderson. This it's a licensed TV obviously comic strip that's been agreed and licensed from Paramount Studios to depict a story relating to Star Trek. It takes on 2 pages here. It's very, very well drawn. I would say as good as the earlier comic. The faces depicted, Star Trek characters are very lifelike, very well drawn, and as I say, this kind of seems to be the kind of focus for the comic at this particular time. Interesting strip here, nothing to do with TV particularly. It's a page, Clark's Commandos. If you can see the detail there, this is to do with Clark's shoes, so it's kind of a semi advertisement in a way, but it's a cartoon strip, kind of trying to, I suppose, promote Clark's shoes. I know at the time Clark's shoes did have a boy's shoe that had a secret compass in the heel, and I suspect that's partly what the marketing is trying to do here, is actually kind of push through these shoes to young boys. And now we come to the Thunderbirds story. As said, there's only 2 colour stories in this comic. Thunderbirds has been kind of dropped to black and white now. It's still quite well drawn. It's not being drawn by the guy that we had in the previous or the earlier comic now. It's being drawn by somebody else, but it is kind of still quite well drawn. So it's kind of being, I guess, dropped out of the comic in some way. Then we have a page that's really full of advertisements. We see here advertisement for stamp collectors. That was something that appeared in a number of comics, and something from Cadbury's there, and another advert to do with cricket, trying to sell something called table cricket. Now this is quite interesting. We have the Adventures of Tarzan as a 2-page strip. I can't remember anything at this time that really related to Tarzan as far as a TV program was concerned. Maybe my memory is slipping away here on this, but yeah, we have Tarzan, which kind of, to me, feels as if it's something really from the past, but it makes a re-emergence here in this TV comic for some reason, and it's taking up 2 pages. I have to say that it's quite well drawn, even though it's in black and white. The detail's quite good, but I get the impression that the artists aren't as well, arguably the artists aren't as good as were seen from the strips that were produced in the earlier comic. And following on, we have a strip from the TV series called The Saint, which starred at the time Roger Moore. The strip's called Meet the Saint, and it's a 1.5 page story strip with a Corgi Model Club advertisement taking up one of the other half pages. Again, quite well drawn, quite lifelike in a way. And then we come to the back cover, which is dedicated to football, and in this particular case it's information around the goalkeeper Gordon Banks, and this would be a feature used on the back page throughout the comics history, really, from now on. If you remember, the earlier comic had the Dalek stories on the back, which for me seemed to be a better deal, but I guess if you were interested in football, this would be great as well. But this shows a definite change away from what we've seen before. So I just wanted to go over really and revise what we've seen here with this particular publication through the years. So we started off with TV Century 21. The version that I got hold of was from 1966, and it largely featured the stories from the Gerry Anderson TV shows, the TV puppet shows, and was largely designed as a broadsheet newspaper. And then we moved on to the one that we just seen today. This is 1969, a move away really from the newspaper style, if you like, it's still trying to include some of the Jerry Anderson TV puppet stories, but it's largely influenced by other TV programs as well, largely from America, including Star Trek and Land of the Giants. But the whole format of the front page has changed dramatically. And then moving on from this style a year later, in fact actually the title TV 21 and Joe 90 only survived for something like 30 odd editions until it was changed back to just TV 21. You can see that Star Trek has survived the change here, but obviously Joe 90 has been removed. That didn't last very long at all. I suspect it wasn't currently on TV at that time, and so was taken away from the comic, and because of that the title had to be changed back to something else, and it was changed to TV 21. And leading on from that, something that we haven't actually seen, in 1971 I think this is, or 1972, you'll see that the comic has dramatically changed to what you might consider a typical comic. In fact, actually the size of the comic has now been reduced substantially and is now called Valiant and TV 21. The actual title of TV 21 is so small here. And you'll notice also that the price has dropped dramatically as well. Although, actually looking at this is 3.5 new p, isn't it? So I guess it's a comparable price, but it's now switched over to the decimalization currency. So this, obviously, the Valiant and TV 21 is amalgamated, and although there'll be TV stories in here, there'll be a large influence of football in here as well, because Valiant was all about football and sport stories. So that's really how the comic changed over a period of time. And now we'll go and sum up what we've seen. Well, I hope you enjoyed that review of the TV 21 and Joe 90 comic. From my personal point of view, it's not the same, and I don't particularly think the content, the detail and the quality is anywhere near as good as the previous one 3 years ago from that one. And well, maybe that's just me, because you know the first one was the one that I had as a child, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but it seems to me that the quality of these comics has kind of gone down. Anyway, that's it from me, and on this video at least, and I'll be back soon, I'm sure, with another exciting video. So bye from me for now, and take care. Bye.